a crystal ball for the Big Orange to land this guy, five-star wide receiver Mike Matthews. He will announce his official decision this Wednesday at 7 o'clock Eastern. So let's get into it a little bit more. It's time now for the Wiltfong Whiparound with our Director of Recruiting, Steve Wiltfong. Steve, in addition to Tennessee, his finalists include Clemson, Georgia, and USC. So what has you leaning Josh Heupel and his crew for the five-star receiver, Mike Matthews?
Well, Mike almost announced his decision this past weekend, sharing the stage with his teammate, top 247 cornerback Jalen Crawford, who, as you guys said at the top of the show, obviously committed to Auburn. So he's ready. He and his family have been very thorough with their process, took several visits to Clemson, several to Tennessee, been to Georgia a ton, went out to USC twice. So they got a great feel for each school, and I believe these programs were all places Mike could see himself, and his parents liked them as well. But going into the announcement, I obviously like Tennessee. You know, it's a place where he's talked about the players and the coaches and constantly pushing to be the best, a program that's on the rise. He was there when they ripped the goalpost down and beat Alabama. He returned in the spring, took his official visit where he got a chance to spend time with Hendon Hooker, who was back on campus, among obviously getting a chance to hang out with the players on the team. Him and his family have talked about the culture and the stability of that program under Coach Heupel and company. Then, of course, it doesn't hurt that they had the number one total offense last year, number one scoring offense last year, and number one passing efficiency offense in the country. So he sees big-time potential within that offense in Knoxville. But Clemson has certainly given him a lot to think about over the course of several visits. Georgia's still battling for him. I think there was times where USC had momentum, so it will be exciting going into Wednesday's decision. But Tennessee pushing for a second straight top 10 class. Mike Matthews would be a big addition in trying to get there.
Mike Matthews isn't the only top flight wide receiver that Tennessee is in on. They're also trying to fight the likes of Alabama and Georgia for Amari Jefferson. He's an in-state prospect from Chattanooga. What are you hearing, Steve, on the star player as we approach the August 5th announcement date?
Yeah, three finalists, Alabama, Georgia, or Tennessee. I think it'll ultimately be Alabama or Tennessee. As we talk today, I like where the Crimson Tide stand for him, but he's going to take one more visit to Alabama and one more visit to Tennessee the last weekend of July. So we'll see if things change. We saw Tennessee kind of rally for in-state linebacker Arian Carter last year. Alabama was the team to beat for much of that process, but Tennessee was able to come from behind and win for Arian Carter. So I am not ruling them out for Amari Jefferson, who at one point thought he was going to attend Tennessee and play baseball. So it's a place he loves, and the ball is still alive in that one. But I like where Alabama stands going into one more round of visits.
In more wide receiver news, the fight for five-star Micah Hudson still seems to be a Texas Tech versus Texas battle. Now, while the Red Raiders currently have your crystal ball pick, Steve, the Longhorns not giving up in this race. So what's the latest with his recruitment?
Yeah, and Mike Roach had an update on the Lake Belton standout out of Temple, Texas there over the weekend as well. But I think that Texas A&M is doing what they can to make a move here late in the process. He looked like he was all set for Joey McGuire and company. He was back on the Texas Tech campus, I heard this past weekend, hanging out with players on the team. It wasn't a recruiting visit or whatever, but just look, this is a young man that feels like he really fits in with the players at Texas Tech, loves the direction of the program, loves the new staff there, but Texas A&M trying to chip away as they put together what is perhaps going to be in the mix for one of the nation's best receiver classes as well. You know, they recently beat Auburn, among others, for Cameron Coleman, beat USC for Draylon Miller, and they're definitely in the mix here for Micah Hudson late, and maybe they beat LSU for speedster Jelani Watkins as well.
We mentioned earlier on the show that the dead period is coming to a close, and we're expecting a bit more activity this coming weekend. A couple four-star linebackers are set to come off the board, Steve. First, it's Edwin Spillman from Nashville. He is announcing this Friday, the 21st. It's Tennessee versus Ohio State. What's the buzz?
I like Tennessee here for Edwin Spillman and have for a long time. I've had a 24/7 Sports crystal ball logged in favor of the Vols since October. He's been a regular on campus. His older brother is part of the football program. And in conversations in the past with Edwin Spillman, he's talked about that culture turning around under Coach Heupel and company, and just the family feel he gets every time he's on campus. Certainly Ohio State's a place that's given a lot of prospects something to think about this cycle, but I like where Tennessee stands for Edwin Spillman.
After him, California linebacker Kyngstonn Viliamu-Asa will make his decision on Sunday, the 23rd. It's down to Ohio State, Notre Dame, and USC for the St. John Bosco four-star. So what's the latest there?
Well, our colleague Greg Biggins has been on top of this recruitment, and but talking to sources with regarding Kyngstonn today, he is going to go on a church retreat this week where he's going to be able to think about his college decision. And Greg Biggins and I both think that this could still go three ways. You got Notre Dame, you got Ohio State, and you got USC in the mix here. I think that Notre Dame has led at various points in this process, gotten him to South Bend several times. It's a place he's very comfortable. I think Ohio State has made a later move here. That official visit the weekend of June 23rd was massive in this process, and USC has never gone away. He continues to have regular dialogue with that coaching staff. A great conversation, I'm told, yesterday. This is one that could still go three different ways. These are three of the best recruiting classes in the country. This is one of the most coveted linebackers in the land, and he could still end up with any one of them.
Going to be a fascinating announcement to see where Kyngstonn Viliamu-Asa decides to play his college ball. Steve, Wisconsin continued to roll over the weekend. They got a commitment from four-star running back Dilin Jones. He had over 30 scholarship offers, and the Maryland native now is headed to Madison. What is Luke Fickell getting in the top 24/7 ball carrier?
Well, Michigan and Notre Dame are two schools that have arguably the best running back class in the country, but you need to include Wisconsin in that fold here as they added Dilin Jones to Darian Dupree, and then the big physical running back out of the same part of the country there in Gideon Atuka. But obviously you see the highlights there for Dilin Jones there, and he can hit the home run between the tackles, outside on the perimeter. He can catch the football. He's also a standout wrestler and track and field guy. He's a ferocious blocker. And Wisconsin with Dupree and Dilin Jones here as your kind of every down interchangeable backs. I think that's a special duo as they remake that running back room. Wisconsin has a fantastic offensive line class in the fold as well. So Luke Fickell and the Badgers' first coaching staff, or first recruiting class here, first full recruiting class here in Madison is terrific. And the running back position is where I would start as I highlight what they've done here so far in 2024.
Yeah, so don't worry. It's not all going to be air raid there. They still got some good backs and a good offensive line like we know and love from Wisconsin. Got a few viewer questions here for you, Steve. The first one is from JBHH. He wants to know where the five-star linebacker Justin Williams is with his recruitment. I see you got a crystal ball in for Oregon, but what can you tell us about him?
Yeah, I think he's heavy trending towards Georgia. Continue to have conversations with people behind the scenes, but I think the visits to Georgia here at the end of the spring, or maybe that was early summer, and then his official visit in June has completely changed where this recruitment stands. He was also back at Eugene, but this is the strongest I've felt about Georgia here. We've talked about him almost every week on this show, but this is the strongest I've felt about Georgia's position right now. Oregon's not going to go away here, but I think Georgia has the momentum with Justin Williams as they look to add to 24/7 Sports #1 ranked recruiting class.
Steve, two names that are very popular among the viewer questions every week, it seems like every show. Brandon Baker, Aiden Breland, the five-star teammates from Mater Dei. I caught up with Brandon Baker this past weekend out in Orange County. He said he watches the show. So, Brandon, if you're watching, we're going to talk about you again. What's the latest, Steve, on Aiden Breland and Brandon Baker?
Well, I think we like where Oregon stands with both of them, but they have major competition for both prospects. When you talk about Brandon Baker, he continues to have regular dialogue with Ohio State. Justin Fry and company pushing hard there. Had a good official visit to Texas where he spent time with Kyle Flood in the Longhorns. Miami is a program that has been in the mix for a while there. So those are some of the schools to keep an eye on for Brandon Baker. And then Aiden Breland, Oregon is a school that's been mentioned a lot there, but Georgia, Texas A&M got official visits in June. Miami, I feel like there's times where we feel like they have a lot of momentum with him. Sometimes not sure. I think they're in the middle of it for Aiden Breland as well. He's enjoyed his time in Coral Gables. I'm not sure. I think Oregon is the one that I would predict ultimately lands Brandon Baker. With Aiden Breland, I'm not as comfortable saying like one school I think ultimately lands him right now.
All right. And Brandon Baker, if you're watching, make sure you hit that like button. And if you're not Brandon Baker, also go ahead and hit that like button. We'd love to hear from you. Got another question here. Hannah wants to know, is 3-star safety out of Utah, Davis Andrews, still leaning Notre Dame?
Yeah, and Blair Angulo just put in a 24/7 Sports crystal ball in favor of the Irish for Davis Andrews, as did our Notre Dame insider Tom Lloyd. But talking to Davis myself in the past about the Irish, I know that the program that he's been super high on has been to campus several times. Yeah, he told me recently that he was also looking at UCLA, BYU, and Utah. But I just think his time spent up in South Bend and the magnitude of that program and the games that they play in and the environment and the degree are things that speak to him about Notre Dame. And he also really fits in with the guys in the locker room, the players that he's been around.
Okay, I have to ask, Blair, you put in the crystal ball 7 days ago. Anything to add here?
Yeah, it did make it seem right that Notre Dame had really kind of grasped the momentum there when we put in those crystal ball predictions. Utah, BYU were two others that were making a strong push. This one sounds like it could end by the end of the month. He wants to make a decision soon, so watch out for the Irish here. This is a player who intends to go on a church mission, so he wouldn't be on campus until the 2026 season, but obviously, guys, a highly coveted and a big-time safety prospect from the state of Utah, worth the wait, I would assume, for Notre Dame and for other programs that are still after his signature.
All right.
Yeah, him and Gatlin Bear. Definitely want to wait on those guys.
Definitely worth the wait. Steve, thank you so much for being on the show. Another reminder, if you want to read more of his work, head to 247sports.com. And as always, for more exclusive information, highly recommend you become a VIP member.